Hi, welcome to this episode of Your Next Door Neighbor, where we like to explore who lives next to us, who we know. And this week we have
Peter Barnett. And Peter Barnett, I met Peter Barnett. He was the owner of Black Dog Yoga, and he's from South Africa. And I started talking to him. Actually, I went to a party where he played drums, and I started talking to him, and he had a great story. And I thought, now here's a guy who's a neighbor. He's from originally South Africa.
a great American story, an immigrant.
Yes, he
emigrated from his country to here. He's an immigrant.
Yeah.
Which is what we believe these stories are about.
Absolutely. And one of the things that's sort of funny, and he'll get into it when you watch the episode, is that he was in a band in New Jersey, and a young Jon Bon Jovi was in the band.
That's right.
And it's interesting.
That's right.
So I hope you enjoy this episode
Of Your Next Door Neighbor.
There you go. Thank you.
Thanks.
My name is Peter Barnett, and I was born in Cape Town, South Africa.
So how long did you live in South Africa?
24 years.
That was a long time. How'd you get here?
Well, let's take it step at a time.
Like a joke.
Yeah, okay, all right.
I flew.
So you were born in South Africa during the Apartheid
I was,
years.
yes, in 56.
So what was that like?
Well, you're young, and it was a great place to grow up. I was born in Camps Bay in Cape Town, which I don't know if you've seen pictures of Camps Bay, but it's absolutely amazing. It's like a resort, you know. My cousins still live there. People say, why the hell did you move to America if you're from that beautiful place? But 24 years later, it was great growing up there. And then, when you figure out what's going on with the inequality, you start to go, wow, it felt a little uneasy. You felt privileged just because of your skin. And people live there and they deal with it, and the whole country's changed now, but there's still a lot of inequality there. I moved out because I just figured I was playing music. I wanted to do music, and my sister had come to America, and I thought, I got to go to America, I'd actually come over. My dad had brought us over for my brother's wedding and did a trip around the States. This was in 79. And I was like, wow, this is cool. This is how South Africa will be in about 20 years.
Why do you
and
think
I'm like, I don't have 20 years to wait, and just...
Why do you think that?
What?
Why did you think that that's what South Africa is going to be like in 20 years?
Oh, because, it was pretty westernized, South Africa. I mean, my dad had a big Pontiac Parisienne, and my uncle had a big Chevy Impala. The days when the cars had the big wings, and my dad had a '56 Chevy. We did barbecues all the time. They called it braaivleis over there. Rugby was a big thing, just like football is. It was very westernized. And the only thing lacking was that it was just like behind the times in terms of technology, music industry. Everything was like just trotting along like behind the times. And
do you think that was like in part because of apartheid?
Yeah, I think, there were boycotts. There were, I went and saw the Byrds in 69 or something, whenever they came down there, 68. But a lot of bands, there was a time when they were boycotted. They couldn't come. And I just think also the distance. It was so far away from everything, the tip of Africa. But, on the other hand, we got all the records. The Beatles, when they came out, they hit at the same time. And that changed my life. So musically, we heard all the songs and we heard everything, but there wasn't really an industry to speak of in terms of, there was a small industry, but there wasn't a pathway like there is over here. If I was born here, who knows, what would happen. All the great musicians that came from like this area.
Yeah. And there's plenty of them.
Yeah.
There's plenty of them that come from San Fernando Valley.
Yeah.
Los Angeles.
What did your dad do?
My dad, so his dad emigrated from England. They all came from Eastern Europe into England and down through what was called Rhodesia back then, now Zimbabwe, and down into Johannesburg. They started, grandfather started a scrap metal business, then into Cape Town, and they started a scrap metal business there. And when my dad was young, his father passed away, and he had to take over the business. And it was him. He was the oldest, 2 sisters and a younger brother. So he wanted to be an engineer. You know, he was pretty artistic as well. He was a really good drawer, and later life he painted a lot. Played the bugle in the marching band, but he hated my music. You know, they came through the war. You know, the Second World War. He was a fighter pilot, quite amazing man. Flew a Spitfire in North Africa with with an allies of the RAF.
That's when Rommel was in North.
Yeah.
Was in Rommel? Yeah.
The Desert Fox. They called.
Right.
They fought all those guys, and I got his logbook in here. Missions into Malta and Tunisia, Tripoli, and amazing stories, man. Such brave people. So I mean, he came through that. Then, you know, after the war, he had to go into the family business. He had to support the family. So kind of his dreams didn't happen. And, you know, we grew up, nice big house back and it's just normal for everybody to have maids, people helping you over there. So we had 2 maids. And you know, everybody lived like that. We lived like like royalty, but it was just a normal thing. And I guess when I got older, I just wanted to play the drums, and he was like, it freaked him out, man. He couldn't handle it. He just wanted me to, because there was no, he said, what are you going to do when you grow older?
That's worse than going to war.
You know, what are you going to do when you grow older? And I was like, I don't know, you know, I'm like, I had nobody to look to. But I look at Mick Jagger, he's like 95 and everything's still going. And the guys are still rocking out, you know, all the old bands from the 60s and 70s.
I think they did pretty well financially.
They did great, you know.
Right.
But I couldn't say I'm going to be a rock and roll drummer. He's like, what do you know?
So he had a bit of that stiff
Yeah.
upper British lip.
Totally.
Plus post World War II. I mean,
Yeah,
the trauma of World War II.
exactly. You
And
know,
the injection of that trauma on the family afterwards.
exactly. I mean,
it was tremendous.
Yeah.
I think it still exists in grandparents.
yeah,
these
of
days.
course. And well, my stepmom, he married. My real mom died when I was living in Camps Bay back in 1960. I was 4 years old, and a couple of years later, he married this woman from Europe, and she'd been through the Holocaust over there, and all the stories that it was like running from one country to the next. They moved him into Spain and down to all over the place. So to them, us just like living like the hippie life just was like, you know, they wanted to make sure that we had something. We had all the opportunities through their eyes. We had all these opportunities, and we were just like, we weren't taking them. You know, that's what they saw. Anyway,
We're gonna run amok. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, you know, I could see later on. I could see where they're coming from, but at the time, we were just rebels, man. But my dad kind of encouraged it in a way. We had a house on a hill, and underneath there was a playroom, and it was all. And every time they went to Europe, they brought back, pop art, all the fashions. Twiggy was in vogue, so yeah, mini skirts and bell bottoms, and they're loud, and we dressed up like that, and it was awesome. So they encouraged. On one level, they encouraged it. On the other level, they're like, what the hell? You can't really take this too seriously. You know, and the room downstairs, he painted like a big like spiral thing, and we bought all these posters. We put up a blue ultraviolet light in there.
I remember there's a velvet posters.
Yeah.
Ultraviolet, like they were great.
Endless
with the tiger
Summer
coming out of the bushes.
Well, we had rock and roll. We had Endless Summer and Jimi Hendrix, Our Experience. They were all in these great colors. Anyway, parties down there, and you know, my dad, when we had parties, he'd really do it up, and so he liked anyway. He lived wild. When he showed me. I got pictures of him in the northern Africa. Whenever they moved their base camp a lot. There was at a bar set up. There was a wing of an airplane, set on 50-gallon drums, and But his name was Dronky Barnett. Dronky means a drunkard because he couldn't take his alcohol, and nor could I. And oh God, I got into trouble.
Alcohol fueled the war, I think.
At a young age, man. I was like, anyway.
So you played music at a young age.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it was just I picked up the bongos when I was. I played in clubs. I picked the bongo playing. My cousins down the road played guitar. My sisters sang, and I was like 9 or something. My aunt got us a gig at an orphanage, and it was amazing. We played the Beatles songs and the Shadows and all these sort of stuff to these kids in the orphanage. And afterwards, it was the Vogue. Everybody had a little autograph book, and you had to. I had one, and they said sign here, and I was like, what do you mean sign? Like, yeah, we were like the first time I got this, the vibe. We're like, we just did something that these people really affected them. It was my first feeling of entertaining, and I was like, oh, this is cool. So my friend down the road played guitar, and I'm like, Roger, come over, man, just play some chords. But they didn't want to buy me a drum set, But they would go overseas every year, and one year, I was 16 years old, I saved up enough money to buy a drum set. I was working as a waiter, and when they came back from overseas, I had a drum kit. Anyway, luckily they didn't make me give it away. I used to stick the speakers on stands and books, and have these speakers next to me, playing Santana and Zeppelin and the Allman Brothers, and just beat the crap out of the drums. Sort of taught myself, It was cool, yeah.
We were talking to one of our other guests, and she grew up in Yugoslavia and wasn't really aware of American music.
Oh, wow.
But you were.
Yeah.
You guys had a pipeline.
Totally. British mainly.
British, yeah. British, Top of the Pops. Did you get Top of the Pops?
But
we didn't have TV, remember?
Right.
We had radio. TV,
TV?
It only came in when I was, I forget the year, 70s, maybe. Yeah.
I mean, there was no TV in South Africa?
No. When the moon landing happened, we were all crowded around the radio listening. Yeah,
Wow.
I can remember we were in the living room by the fireplace listening to Neil Armstrong.
So my point was, so you say English, but so you didn't hear American bands? Like, did you hear soul music? And
Yeah. But the main thing, there was a pipeline to England. That was the thing. But sure, we got all the music. We got all the stuff. But it was funny because I heard blues and soul mainly. I think the first time I heard it was like from the Beatles playing it and the Stones playing it, not so much like the real deal.
Right.
Like Al Cooper and Mike Bloomfield and Super Sessions, Steve Stills and those guys. I heard it from those guys, and then later on, mainly when I came to America, really, then you get the full spectrum.
Right.
The whole thing, but back then it was just interpretations, which were really good, but also I guess because of apartheid. Maybe they didn't really promote the black guys down there that much.
That's true. That's true.
What do you think that not having TV until the 70s was control of information on the
they were big
South
on
African government?
I'm sure they weren't in a big hurry,
To put it in.
Yeah, for sure. Just like the internet's like blown everything up. They knew that. They were big on control of information between blacks and whites. A big disparity. The school systems were different. Blacks had to go to school here. Whites had to go there. Whites had a much better education than the black people down there. It was like all different. Now it's mixed, but back in the day it was very separate.
Now, as a young person, did you ever hear of Nelson Mandela, or was he just locked away?
He was, he was this guy that later on he went to he went to jail because he was blowing up things, basically, yeah, because he needed to get attention somehow. Yeah, we knew he was in Robben Island, but I was here when he got released. You know, I was living in New Jersey.
When he was arrested, you were a young person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we could see Robben Island. I could see it from my auntie's. She lived on the 14th floor of this block of flats, and hey, there's Robben Island, and yeah, it was there.
So did you find that there's still like a contingency of South Africans who pine for the apartheid days, where South Africa
unofficially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was.
I remember when the world was so black and white.
Just white.
No pun intended.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because there's still a lot of discrimination, even though it's run by the black people now. They've squandered all these funds, looted a lot of the funds that are supposed to go for the betterment of the black people, infrastructure, and they've done a lot more but who's to say it wouldn't have happened anyway? Right. But it's still, I mean, just the way it was set up. There was this thing called the Group Areas Act back in the day. Because before apartheid happened in 1948, and you know, it was the Union of South Africa, the British Commonwealth, and there were these people lived wherever they wanted to live, and there were some great communities right near the city of Jews, Muslims, Christians, everybody, just an amazing place. But then the Group Areas Act happened, and they decided that no, if you're Indian or colored, which mixed race, couldn't live there anymore. You had to move. They made this place called Mitchell's Plain, which is like, you know, if you were living downtown, now they shipped you out to like the furthest part of the valley kind of thing. And they just built housing for these people, for the colors and the Indians, and then they freaking bulldozed this place down. It was I've got pictures of it, just a beautiful neighborhood. And they left the mosques and the churches, but they bulldozed the whole. It was like traumatic. It was like a stab in the heart of the whole community. But that's how they operated down there. Nobody could say anything.
Stab in the heart of humanity.
It was horrible.
And it's interesting you said colored colors, whatever. You know, in South Africa, because I've been there are those definitions between black and colors.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, you know,
yeah.
That's not polite chatter in American conversation, but it's the way people talk here.
It's there.
It's South Africa, people talk like that.
Yeah. Well, exactly. There was the whites, then there was like instead of the hierarchy was like, I guess the Indians, then there's the mixed race. Back in Cape Town, the blacks and whites back in the day, they intermingled and they with this colored race. And then you got the black native black tribes, Xhosas and Zulus and Swanas and Sutus and all. And so on a like a building site, for example, the black guys are just hoisting bricks around. You know, the Indian guys are doing the skilled labor work. The white guys doing all the white collar work, the designers and stuff like that. And that's how it went.
So you mentioned the tribes.
Yeah.
Were you aware of people from different tribes? I mean, could you tell that they look like a certain group of people? The whole idea of tribes is fascinating to me. You know?
Well, we didn't really, because I lived in the city.
Right.
So in the city, in Cape Town was this sort of area was the Xhosa race, and up in Durban, Natal was the Zulus, and they stayed up there. And Nelson Mandela was the Xhosa guy, and Gacha Buthelezi was the Zulu guy, but there's like 12 different black races or tribes and 12 different black languages. But no, only when you really looked into the books and you could see the Hereros, I think, out of Namibia with their beautiful colored huts and their amazing clothes and hats and jewelry. It wasn't apparent. You had to sort of study it a little bit, you know. So I wasn't aware of that when growing up. It was just Xhosa, and it was all around you, man, because you'd be sitting on the bus and there'd be a Xhosa guy at the back speaking to a Xhosa guy in the front, but the guy in the front wouldn't even be looking backwards. He'd just be like they'd be having a conversation. The guy was yelling and screaming, but it just awesome people.
Did you ever learn any of the?
I did sort of by default. I learned Xhosa, it's Xhosa, XH, in high school because I wasn't handling my mathematics too well. And you had to have 2 sciences or 3 languages to get your GED or matriculation certificate. I couldn't get the sciences part right. I kept I couldn't handle the mathematics. So I opted for 3 languages. So I did Xhosa, and there was a teacher that came in, Anne Brown. She came to school to teach young lady, and we didn't realize how young she was, because later on she ended up marrying a friend of mine. She was our age, but they didn't tell us. She was like 18 years old, we were 17 or something. But anyway, she grew up on a farm, fluent Xhosa. She taught us. It was great. I loved that language. It was awesome. So I learned a little bit of it. Enough to get me. It was like first year university Xhosa. So I got through that.
So did you have to spend time in the military?
Yeah, it was compulsory.
Oh, really? So what age were you?
Yeah, after school, when you finished with school. Well, at school they had like the cadets. They had cadets. Right. You had to march. You had to 1 day a week or whatever it was. You had to wear a khaki uniform and march. I don't know what that was for, but you had cadets marching up and down, and
in case they needed you.
I don't know. It was crazy, But they had that at school. Anyway, after the recruiters came to school, and everybody had to go unless you went straight to university. You could defer it till when you finished. So what guys did? They went to university, got their degree, then they went into the armed forces as what's it called? As a commissioned officer. They went to like officer training, so they came out with rank. But the rest of us, we were either the Navy or the Air Force or the Army. I ended up going to the Army, and ended up being in the infantry. I don't know why I didn't stick my hand up to be a driver or something, but I was a foot soldier up in. I had to go to Uppington, which is just south of Southwest Africa, and it used to be 9 months. You did 9 months of training and you were done. Then they changed it to a year. Then they changed it to 1 year. In the Army, and then another year in the reserves afterwards. And that was when I went, it was 1 year in the Army, and you had to do 1 year in the reserves afterwards. So I did my year in the Army, and then I decided it was more than 1 year in reserves. I think it was like 3 years or something in the reserves, once a month. So you had to keep your kid at home. Once a month you had to go to do a camp. You had to go to do a weekend in the local Army base. And I was like, I want to do the Army, and I'm just going to get back to my music. So I decided there was another way out. A year in the permanent force. That's what it was. A year in the permanent force, PF. So I went to the Navy band, and I gave them the story that I wanted to join the Navy band. I'm a musician. I want to make it my life, because of all the musos in Cape Town, all the good guys. So they played in the Navy band. There's some great guys down there. So they just had to show up in the morning, and from like 8 to 12, show up, do their rehearsals, and they could go to do their studio work and do their gigs. So that was the idea. But we had to stay the whole day, But if you got good enough, you could leave. Anyway, so the Navy band was a great place. So I joined the Navy band, stayed there for a year to the day. After I signed up, I quit. And
you had to do the 9 months and then another year?
I did a year and then another year.
So you're 24.
When I left, yeah.
So how did you leave? Where did you go?
Cattle boat, airplane.
Yeah, I've been working as let's just backtrack a bit, because my dad, like, you need something to fall back on. He knew I was good at drawing and everything, so I did a course in architectural draftsmanship at the Cape Tech, and I was working for architects and doing working drawings for them, playing drums, and had a great time playing in Cape Town in South Africa. Played so many different. The cool thing about growing up down there was we weren't like And we were really open to lots of, because we were kind of starved for entertainment. We were open to anything that came through. So if it was rock or soul or George McRae or the Temptations or whatever, you know, not many rock bands came down there, but whatever we heard, we liked, you know. So I ended up playing in lots of different bands. There was a kind of shortage of drummers, I guess, and I could play these different styles. So I played in jazz, rock bands, jazz bands. It was pretty awesome, good education. And the Navy band was great because I learned to read music. I learned to figure out what you know, the structure behind music, because up till then I was just winging it. But I just thought that back at the time, then the apartheid was getting so bad. The thing was going. It was so bad that it was like the way it was resolved was like the Republicans becoming Democrats. It was like people like rights just completely going, okay, sure, we'll do it your way. I was like, that was never going to happen, because these people running the show down there were like the hardcore guys, but they had meetings with Nelson Mandela when he was in jail, and with the ANC, the banned African National Congress. They had interviews with them, and because there was actually a referendum. They did this thing, and I actually voted once I was down there. It was like it was yes or no. Should we talk to the black people and try and figure out a way to resolve this issue, or should we not? And it was just a plain yes or no, and the majority was yes. It was just for the whites. Only whites could vote, right? But most of the whites said yes. So they went ahead. And but I'd left by then, because I just didn't see this. I just saw bloodshed. I just saw these guys digging in, saying, we're not going to change. The Bible says it's blacks here and whites over there. They just quoted all these Bible things. So I was like, well, you know, I want to go down with the ship here. And I had this opportunity to go to the States. You know, my sister was in a band, and they studied in Berkeley and everything. And I was like, my brother had a wedding. My dad brought us over, and I came in on a green card because his sister had lived in Detroit. So on a green card, you were able to travel around the country as long as you kept going in one direction. I think you had like 10 stops by plane. It was like $250 back in the day. And so I just went hopping around the country. I went all the way around. And I was like, this is a great place. I need to come live here. So, you know, I had to go back to South Africa. But in 1980, I hopped on a plane with nothing, man. Just like, my sister, I said, can I be a roadie in your band? They said, sure. My dad, I guess, was just too pleased to see me go. Gave me this watch.
Oh, wow.
Still have it. Basically shook my hand and off I went, man. Nervous as hell, just giving up everything. My gums got inflamed. I read later that was some nervous condition. They just started bleeding. I was like, right in America with like bleeding gums. And it was April when I arrived into New York. I was staying in Brooklyn. It's like the sky was blue, and it was so freaking cold. It's like, oh my God. It was like blowing. I could feel my skeleton. I was like, ugh, man, this is cold. This is not even winter. It's just finished with winter. Like, anyway, so it took a while before they went on the road, started touring, and I was a roadie for. Their drummer was Anton Fig, who plays with the Letterman band. He's from Cape Town.
Yeah.
Cape Town guy. They were all from Cape Town. This band. They came over and they did good.
What was the name of the band?
It was called Spider. They were represented by Bill Acoyan, who was Kiss's manager. They got into Kiss management, but I don't think he knew how to manage a small band, because they had some great songs, but they just, I don't know why he didn't put them on the tour opening for Kiss. They put them in the little clubs and whatever. The keyboard player went on to write songs for Pat Benatar and Aerosmith and everything else, Holly Knight. And one of the guitar players, Bo Hill, produced Rat and produced all these great bands. And Anton ended up playing on the Letterman show. And my sister, she's in Gori Hills. And anyway,
There's so many Los Angeles stories
Yeah.
of almost.
Yeah.
Oh, I was almost right. You have no idea who I was connected to.
Oh, they had a top 40 hit, and Spider, yeah, great band called Spider. There's songs on YouTube and stuff.
I don't quite understand the $250 green card as long as you were going in one direction.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Was that like a law or something?
It was a thing put out by the Tourism Bureau or something for new people, resident aliens could come in and travel around the country to see the whole country, which was great.
As long as you went one direction.
Yeah, you couldn't back and forth.
I gotta look that up. That's tremendous.
I don't know if it's still going, but back in the day, you can look in 1979.
We wanted people back then.
Yeah,
we don't anymore.
Yeah. So I did come through California back in there, but I lived in New Jersey, New York until '96 when I came back.
Whereabouts in New Jersey?
I lived on the shore because my sister was in Brooklyn Heights. They were but anyway, we did a show, a bunch of shows, and one of them was in New Jersey, down at the shore, at the Fast Lane, and the shore, and I met a woman there. You know, I was a young guy, long hair, packing up the gear afterwards. Met a lady and stayed the night. I said to the guys, you know, when you're coming through, because they had to go back to Manhattan, and in the next few days they want to come down to Philadelphia, I said, just give me a shout. I'll meet you on the Jersey Turnpike, and I'll get back with the band. So they, anyway, met this lady, and it hit it off really well. You know, I continued with the tour with the band, but then later, you know, I ended up going back to Jersey, see this girl, and then I told her I was a drummer and everything. She introduced me to. We went to see this band that was looking for a drummer down on the shore called The Rest. Their drummer was putting stuff in his arm and stuff like that. You know, wasn't reliable. So
usually the fate of drummers.
You know, unless they simultaneously combust. But
that's like we all got that reference.
Yeah. So they needed a drummer. I auditioned and I got the gig. And so then I told the guys in the band that I was working with Anton. I was like, Anton, I got this gig in this band. I need to quit as a roadie. He said, okay, man, I understand. So they had a warehouse, the Kiss warehouse, and I got some drums out of there and put together a little kit, a mishmash of different drums, stands, and he let me do this just on the. Got this kit together, and we started playing gigs at the Fast Lane. The band had a young singer by the name of Jon Bon Jovi, Bon Giovanni, or something like that. He became. So he was like 17. I was 24. It was a great band. The thing is that it didn't work musically because he was into this sort of Southside Johnny, Bruce Springsteen way of singing, you know, and the guy that brought him and this keyboard player had written these awesome songs. The Knack was big back then. It was like sort of punk, melodic punk, you know, hard-edged music. I loved the music. It was so cool. I Want to Make You Black and Blue Again, songs like and Living on the Other Side of the Night. But there was John singing, but the people just came, and it was just like chicks everywhere. We were really popular.
Me or him?
Yeah, well, the band was popular because he was the front man. You know, the band did good before, but we did better with him. Yeah. And but then eventually Jack, the guitar player, John was like, I got a song, you know, kind of. And Jack was like, nah, we're doing my stuff, you know. Never let John bring his stuff in. So John eventually left the band. And, you know, we carried on, got Jack's sister in different incarnations, and we just kept playing. But, you know, John went to work at his uncle's place. His uncle, Tony, somebody or other, at the record plant in the power station, I think it was called.
Okay,
the power station is in New York. So his uncle owned that place, and John got the gig. It was like set up mics and everything. But in the evening, you can use the studio and record. And he recorded "Runaway," and then the rest is history, which is a pun because the name of the band I was playing was called The Rest. Anyway,
could you tell, even at his young age, that he was something different and special?
Yeah, I mean, he had a great. He just had that. He did that vibe on stage, you know. Yeah. But there were so many talented people down there.
And he now owns New Jersey, I think.
Yeah, right. So many talented people down there. Yeah, and you know, we thought we were something special too. We demoed and we sent demos in, and we were this close to getting signed all the time, and you know, played with all kinds of bands on the shore down there. But what happened was, about a year after I met that woman, I had my daughter, who's now 37 and lives in Phoenix, and I was like, okay, I need to start earning some real money because I wasn't paying the bills. So I just started working as a courier, as a whatever I could, just any gigs, filing clerk and all kinds of stuff just to make ends meet. But we ended up buying a house. You know, we bought a house in Asbury Park, New Jersey, you know, and for $45,000 with a rental in the back. We rented it out for $600 and paid the mortgage, and we thought we were really styling. And
You were?
Yeah, we were. It was great.
You were.
Were you still playing music while you were doing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a band called James Dealey and the Valiants. James lives here in LA. He moved out here, but it was the next band. We did a lot of recording with those guys, own recordings, you know, and try to get a deal. But it was such a crazy market. We got some good recordings, live shows and everything. But nobody did video back in the day. There was a few video things, but I don't have much in the way of photos or video. A few here and there. But it was great. Played the shore. I mean, the one local drummer ended up playing on the Saturday Night Live gig. He got that gig, you know. Just the level of music was so high. You know, and we were just playing at that level all the time. I listened to my recording. I'm like right in the pocket, man. You know, because we played all the time. It was great. Yeah. So when my daughter was about 5, we got married. And when she was 10, we got divorced. You know, this was now 92.
All New Jersey still.
Yeah, all in New Jersey. And I was still playing. I played all the time in New Jersey. Worked and played. Then I had met another woman and was a fiance. We were together for 5 years. She wanted to have kids. By that time I had 2 kids because we had sold our house for $90,000. We thought, whoa, we're getting such a lot of money. And we went down to Florida. Florida was a trip, man. It was awesome. And my son was born down there in '87. He's still living in Florida. And so we went back. After that, it was so weird because the guys in New Jersey was like, we're gonna go up to New York, man. When we got to do together here, we're going to New York. We're gonna make it big. And I was like, I've tried that, been there, done that, you know. But anyway, I got tired of Florida because it was hot and then it got hotter, you know. And
was it muggy?
Muggy, and then it just got even muggier. It was crazy. And if you weren't into like growing tomatoes or being old, you know, and it was a kind of boring old place. So back to New Jersey we went. And then actually my friends, this bass player, a friend of mine who had come over into Florida, went to Pennsylvania, ended up working with his brother in LA. They had a company called Endless Noise. Endless Noise was a post-production audio company. Back in the 90s, back in Santa Monica.
It sounds familiar to me. It sounds really familiar to me.
It's John Bashu and this other guy. I forget.
Was it on 7th Street in Colorado or something?
It was like Pico. It wasn't Pacific Ocean.
That's what I'm thinking of.
It wasn't Pacific Ocean. That was a great place.
Are they still there? I don't even know.
POP, I'm not sure. POP, we used to have great lunches, boy.
Yeah, yeah. And
But
that was a nice place.
awesome.
Yeah.
This was on Pico in the 20s and something, 18s. They had a warehouse in there. Anyway, I went to visit them. They said, come to LA, come check it out. I went to visit them. And my bass player buddy showed me what he's doing. Everything was on Pro Tools. And they basically had, the video from these commercials, and they had to do with audio. And I was surprised that they never, if you wanted dogs or crowds, you just had all these sound libraries. And he gave me so anyway, that's what they did. And he had this, working on a Reebok commercial, they had to come up and they had to do, I think they were doing a demo or something for Reebok. They were a demo, a Reebok commercial. And he composed some music. He had me play percussion and make noises and take trash can lids and smash them and all sorts of crazy things. And that became the commercial. That became this thing. I went back to New Jersey and I was like, so if I came out there, would you be able to give me some work? And he said, sure, come on over. That's all I needed. So I said, kids, we're moving to LA. This is 96. My daughter was she was like, I think my son was, how old was he? Maybe 8 years old, 8 years old. She was like 14, 15, maybe 16. 10 and 16, I think they were. Actually, 96, he was 9. It was 87, he was born. So 9 and 15. It was such a bad time to bring a girl out of the school. She was playing basketball, whatever they call it.
She hated you.
Yeah.
That's all there is to that.
They told me, if you come to LA, you got to either go to Santa Monica or Beverly Hills for the schools, school districts. I tried Santa Monica. Another friend from Cape Town was living in LA. She said, hey, she was living in Beverly Hills. She said, this apartment's become available near me. It was on south of Burton Way on North Almond, great area.
Yeah, nice neighborhood.
Nice. So I was like, holy crap. So we went and lived in Beverly Hills. My daughter put her in Beverly Hills High School, 90210. My son was at Horace Mann down the road. I was set, man.
Did they like those places?
And initially they didn't like it. My son was the first one to split and went back to his mom. He stayed with me for a year or two. Didn't really like the vibe. I don't know why, but went to his mom. His mom had moved to Florida, and so went to stay with him. My daughter stayed. She graduated from Beverly Hills High School and ended up going to CSUN and then down to UC Irvine. But later on, she said to me, Dad, moving like that it just taught me that, wherever you go, you have to establish yourself. It's just a natural thing of reestablishing yourself, meeting new people and creating another network, So, so at the time it was a bit traumatic for them. But I ended up, so I came back, I came to LA, and went to work with these guys in Endless Noise until the business folded. Wow. I'm out of a job, but I'm in LA. One guy's girlfriend was in production. She said, I'll give you a job as a PA. It was like, wow, I'm making 150 a day, because when I was doing the roadie work back in New York, it was 150 a week, I think. And worked my way up into the art department, which is even more money, like 175, 200, 250 a day. It was awesome. Anyway, but at that stage, I'd started, it was funny because I was working out in the gym in the Beverly Hills Health and Fitness on Beverly and near that big shopping mall. I used to go there, it was 24 hours. I used to work out there, and there was some paintings on the wall, which I noticed, I asked them about them, and they said, yeah, the artist is South African. I'm like, oh, cool. Well, if you call, give her my number and we'll chat. Anyway, that never happened. But one day I'm working out and I hear this South African voice, excuse me, can I just get that picture off the wall there? So I'm like, oh, yeah, you must be the artist. And I introduced myself. And she said, well, I'm having an exhibition, you should come along. So I went along, and she introduced me to her friends, and there's one guy is a keyboard player. He's also a doctor, not doctor, a lawyer, keyboard player, and we get chatting. Yeah, you got to come jam at my house and everything. And I said, I met Renee at the fitness, but I'm tired of working out on my own. I've been doing the boxing circuit training. I need a good group class. I can't do the aerobics. I'm not good at that. He says, I'll take you somewhere. I'll pick you up on such and such a day. Just wear your gym clothes and bring a towel, bring some water. So we go to this place on Wiltshire, the bottom of Robertson there, go upstairs. He says, you don't need your shoes. Yeah, take this rolled up thing, go into this room, and the fucking temperature is like boiling hot. Like, what is this place? He says, this is Bikram yoga. Like, I can't even breathe. He says, well, go. The best place to be is right in front of the vents where the air comes out, or by the window. You can crack the window a little bit. So I did the Bikram class, not knowing what the hell to expect. Got through it. But the hard part is going back for the second one, because now you know what's coming. So I did a few Bikram classes. That's my introduction to yoga. I was like, okay, wait a minute. Is there any other kind of yoga around? Because this is like the same stuff over and over again, the same poses, and I'm not too sure about this heat. And he says, yeah, there's, and it was expensive. It was like $20 a class back in '97,
Jeez.
And I was like, I can't really afford this. He says, well, there's a donation place down in Santa Monica, called Brian Kest. He's running this place down at it's called Power Yoga. I'm like, okay, I'll go there. And I started going to Brian's place, and he was getting his $100 a month out of me, and I ended up going there every day because it was great. It was like you sweated just as much because he packed them in, like mats were like this close together. He had 100 people in class, small room, and it was awesome. It was his spiel was great. What he was saying was awesome, and I got hooked on yoga, man, through that guy.
So you got hooked on yoga.
Yeah. He was, Brian's place was on 5th and Broadway, above the Radio Shack. I started going above the Radio Shack. It was called the Dance Center or something. It was some room that was rented out, and he rented it. He must have paid $25 for the room, and he raked in the dough. Brilliant. And he ended up opening his own place as well, and getting other teachers involved. And I discovered through that, the whole Santa Monica yoga scene. Shiva Ray, Sean Korn, Vinny, all those guys. I just loved it. I went all the time, and then Stephen Earth on Melrose and Fairfax. Went to his. He was also doing donation power yoga, and I was looking to do a teacher training, and nobody else was doing one. So I did my first one with Stephen Earth in the year 2000. So he's responsible for getting me into teaching, really. And I started teaching in his place, which was pretty cool. Went on retreats and was just into learning so much about yoga. After 3 years of doing it, I figured, give it a shot as a teacher, and then started teaching at the Center for Yoga. I went in there and they gave me a chance. They said, look, we don't have a class right now, but we used to have the 6:30 class in the morning. And if you want, you can resurrect it. I'm like, okay. Ugh. So it was so weird. I thought to myself, okay, I hated school. I hated my teachers. Now I'm a teacher. I hated exercise. I just couldn't stand doing exercise. Now I'm doing exercise all the time. And I had to get up early in the morning because I'm a rock and roller. And now look how life just throws you a curveball. I did all of those three things, and that changed my life completely. Just like, then I figured out.
What a descent.
I thought to myself, you just better stay out of your own way because there's something else at work here, Also being into yoga, you realize that there's some other forces at work. Yeah. But I just thought, that's ironic. Teaching, getting up early, and exercise, three things I hated, now I'm doing.
So how did you get to Black Dog? Did you start? I don't.
Yeah, I was teaching at the Center for Yoga, and built this class up, man. And it took me like 5 years, but I said the biggest turnout, we had like over 30 people coming to class at 6:30 in the morning.
Wow.
I changed it to 6:15 because the meters started at 8 o'clock. And I didn't want to end at 8. I wanted to end before, so people could get out on the street and get their cars moved. But then they gave me the 5:30 Sunday afternoon spot. It was a popular class, and I took it over, and it just became massive. That was in the big room, and that was like, I don't know how many people. There'd be 70 people in that room. It's a massive big room, just filled with people. So I got a name, I became noticed. And then I was looking for other work, and Black Dog I knew about Black Dog in the Valley, and Jenny Brill called me. She said, "You should come teach at Black Dog." I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't even, some studio in the Valley. Well, I don't know about that. But later on, I think a year or two went by, and they became bigger and everything, and I approached them, and they I started working. In the beginning, I took classes wherever I could get them. So I was driving like that all over the city, and just getting frazzled. And then eventually, I figured out a routine where I went in a circle, and I started off and ended up in the Valley.
The circle, you only could go in one direction.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was pretty much one direction.
There's a certain theme.
Yeah, yeah. And ended up in the Valley. Ended up teaching at Black Dog, and I had a big name by then, so they were like getting this big Hollywood teacher coming in. It was a big thing for them, and they had built this room downstairs, this long room, narrow room, and it's like, this is an interesting room to teach in, because how do you really set things up? If you sit at one end, and it's like this long corridor, that's kind of weird. Anyway, it became my room, the room that Peter built. Steve told me he called it between him and his wife. I ended up sitting in the middle and having two groups face each other. It forced me to become really creative, because we started like that. Then they did a few sun salutations facing each other, but it was kind of weird, everybody like looking. Then I had everybody, okay, turn this way. And then, because Shiva Ray was all about having classes move in different directions. So, okay, now you're doing sun salutations that way. Now we'll face that way. And I became really creative with my teaching, got them to flow in all different ways. And it changed up the perspective for me. And I loved that room. And I was teaching there a few years, and it was in that room that after Shavasana, Shirley came up to me and said, "Would you be interested in buying this place?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She says, "Yeah, I think we might want to sell." I'm like, "What do you mean? This is your baby. This is..." And she wouldn't tell me why, but she says, "We'll talk about it." And that was maybe in like November of 2007. In 2008, we'd worked it all out, and I took over in August 2008. And then found out how expensive that bottom room was, because there's different rents. There's office rental downstairs and retail downstairs and office upstairs. The retail is you pay triple net because you're on the ground floor. You have to fix your own air conditioning. You pay all your own utilities. But upstairs, office space, it's nice. They pay the utilities. There's no triple net. And so I was like, I gotta get rid of this bottom room. Anyway, ended up, my mandate with them was build the studio, take it to the next level. And I was like on a roll, man. I'd been teaching 22 classes a week. I was all over the place, had a big name. My classes were full. The place was rocking. And the first thing we did was we broke down the wall in the red room, because they had a entrance, a hallway that went like this, a lobby. Broke down that wall. Now we made the big room nice and big, the red room nice and big with windows. And then I had my eye on other places, as soon as one person left, I rented out a portion of the long room downstairs to a Hunt Pilates. And I said to them, I'm looking to get upstairs. And she's like, I said, if your business expands, you can take the whole thing. because we tried to get her on our schedule as a mat Pilates, but it never worked. I said to her, why don't you just start your own business? So I was kind of responsible for getting her to start, but that's what happened. We got the space upstairs that moved out. We went up there, and she ended up taking the whole thing downstairs, which was a nice way to get out of the downstairs rental. Anyway, I built that place up.
So you have a philosophy to your success with the yoga business? Was there?
I didn't know anything about business, about actually how business runs. But there was a guy that used to come to my classes down in Hollywood, because he was this businessman, and he loved the fact that I played Hendrix and Pink Floyd and everything in my yoga. He's Peter Kaufman. And when I took over the studio, Peter Kaufman, and he'd come with his yoga partner called Jane. He doesn't come to Black Dog anymore, but he came all the time. He's our age. And he took me under his wing and mentored me. He says, look, it's really easy, this business thing. You just have to think about it from the perspective of the customer. Whatever, think of walking through the door as a customer. Think of calling up. Think of you didn't say website, but later on when I was designing the websites and upgrading, just think of it from the customer point of view. Everything has to be from the customer's perspective, and everything else will just fall into place. And he was right. He was absolutely right, because the vibe there was awesome. There was it was built. Black Dog was built in word of mouth, because that's how Shirley and Steve ran it. It was just like this neighborhood place. They also didn't know much about business. I just wanted to create a neighborhood place where people could come. And I came in, and I just remember thinking, okay, the ship is sailing in one direction. Who am I to come in and say, okay, we can get in and do this now? I was like, we just need to keep going. And my analogy in my head was, I said, that's going to be my plan. I'm not going to change anything, because it's a winning, whatever's working is working. Why change it? When I took over, all of a sudden the ship became like a off-road vehicle. It became like a Jeep. Oh, geez. I had to battle to keep it on track. It kept wanting to do this, and that is how I felt running this business. When I got it in my hands, I thought it was going to be this steady old steamer just going down the road.
Because of employees?
Because there were so many variables. Like, it was little things, like we ran out of copy paper, or the printer went down, or certain things, flyers. We had to get flyers out, and there was a lot of things I didn't know how to do. And I had to. Steve helped me. There was a transitional stage, but there's a lot of stuff that didn't. It was so much stuff that he could only teach me so much. There was all this stuff that we sort of learned by experience, and that was the thing going all over the place. I got Rose involved. Rose Gresh, she was the manager before, and Steve did everything himself. He just was the kind of control freak kind of guy. He wanted to, and I was like, okay, Rose, you need to do this. Help me with this, and so got her involved, and that's how we ran the business. The two of us.
But you were the owner only, or
yeah.
Did you okay.
I was the sole owner.
But they helped.
Huh?
But they helped.
Rose, I got Rose helping, and then we got Megan Abrams came in to help with some more admin, and I got someone else doing all the teacher training stuff, and but the philosophy was, not to don't rock the boat kind of thing. I mean, if I had to, looking back, if I had started my own place, although I probably wouldn't have ever been able to start my own place. I tried in Hollywood, but I think I'm really good at taking what somebody else is doing and keeping it going. But once it all happened, I like the fact that I could create things. Let's do this event, or let's do this sale, or let's try these classes, or let's speak to this teacher and see if they want to do that. And it was malleable. You could try these different things, and some worked and some didn't work. It was pretty cool having that freedom.
You sold Black Dog.
I did, yeah. I'd plateaued.
Life led you all the way to there.
All the way
like,
to there.
You know what?
It was crazy, man. It was like the yoga had changed my life, because I went from this Bikram class to becoming a popular teacher to owning a studio, I have to admit that I never really had my own my practice. I would, in the beginning, do my own practice, but the more I taught, teaching 22 classes a week, the last thing I felt like doing was yoga. And the days that I did it, and I knew that the only time to could fit it in would be before, because after the day is finished, I couldn't do a whole vinyasa flow class. So I used to get up a couple times. I got up because my class was at 6:15. I'd get up at like 3:34, hit the mat for an hour and a half, and those days were brilliant. I knew that that's the way. If I had stuck with that, it would have been a whole different story, I'm sure. But my own practice, I kept the ability to do yoga up just by teaching so many classes, demoing and creating I felt very privileged as a teacher to create the space, the sacred space that yoga is, and that kept me in the zone, and I could demo poses, I could do everything, but I was having my own practice became sort of less and less and less, and I had delegated so much in the business, I felt I had lost control, there was no room for expansion. Our rent, because I had expanded so much, our rent had gone up, the income didn't go up as much, the margins were small. It was just, I just felt I was dialing it in at some point as well, in terms of teacher training. I was really enjoying it, but I just felt like it just wasn't the same anymore. It didn't have the same passion. So I thought it better, rather than coming off as being sort of insincere, I just walked away, So ended up selling it, and the idea was to get back into yoga and do it more, which I'm still battling to do. I put wheels on this table. This table comes out of the way. I got the yoga mat back there, and this is the yoga room. I open it up, it faces east. It's very auspicious, and I do my yoga in here. I'm not back to the level I used to be, but I'd like to think that I'd get back into teaching at some point. People say you should get back into it. And my wife is like, yeah, maybe it's just something you went through, and now it's something else like drumming or whatever. But yeah.
Do you miss
is there something else there outside of yoga, outside of drumming, that you're like, there might be a seed in your brain somewhere to say, what?
I'm sort of waiting for,
Or are you waiting for that seed?
It's interesting because it seems like every 20 years there's been something happening. When I was 24, the big thing happened and I came to America. When I was 41, started doing yoga, and then 44, I started teaching yoga. Interesting, actually 44. I'm 63 now. So next year I'll be 64. Maybe next year.
Divorce.
What?
The fours.
Oh, you said divorce.
No. The fours. No.
The fours.
The fours.
Yeah.
No, not divorce.
May the fours be with you.
Do you think you might teach again? Was that
I mean,
I was actually thinking something outside of teaching.
I liked what I liked about teaching was I got the same vibe from teaching that I did from that first day when those kids asked for the autograph.
Right.
I saw teaching as my solo career. I'm up there, it's just me now on stage, kind of. But you have to be on. You have to have a vibe and be on in the music, and you're creating something. You're creating an ambience, and it was a privilege to do that, and it really, I loved it, and I miss it. I miss it a lot. But you can't just say I'm just going to start teaching again. I don't want to just go in there, and I need to get that passion back again. And because I felt myself stagnating. A teacher to evolve, for teaching to be bright, you need to keep evolving on your yoga mat, and I wasn't really. So, just to be quite honest,
So, what's life like now?
Life, I'm gonna have to show you my drums in the garage there. I got this monster drum set and my other recording electronic drum set. I decided also drumming was, I reached a stage where I wasn't doing anything that I liked anymore. I wasn't doing my yoga, I wasn't doing my drumming. I felt like my feet were encased in cement and I was just stuck. And I went to see somebody. I went to see. I did a course with this person, and she said, just I think it was 3 minutes. Just do 3 minutes of something. Just do your. She said, do 3 minutes, and it's that book called Stick Control, which I've had since the '60s, which is a great book. It's written in the '40s. And it's the Bible of, it's like every possible thing you can play with two hands, you know. And I've dabbled in the book, but I've never really said I've gone from page 1 to page 70 or whatever it is. And the object is to work my way through it. She says, well, just do 3 minutes a day. And I started with this 3 minutes, because anybody can do 3 minutes. I thought 3 minutes is nothing, but 3 minutes, okay, I'm enjoying this. It became 5, 10. Sometimes I went and played the drums. Sometimes, and then I started getting back into it, and now I'm loving the drumming again, just from those 3 minutes. The yoga was a different thing. She was like, just get your ass on that mat and do something. But I do. But my practice on the yoga mat is more stretching, restoratives. I have to work my way up to this full-on vinyasa class. I go to the gym every morning. The Drum Fantasy Camp came up, this thing in August last year.
I'm in.
Drum Fantasy Camp. Brilliant.
Did you go?
Billy Cobham, Todd Zuckerman from Styx, Matt Gosker from Animals as Leaders. I checked this thing out. The manager, the guy who organizes, lives around the corner, I found out. I signed, my wife said, you've got to do this, sign yourself up. And it basically is like from a Thursday till a Tuesday, you get to have lessons. There's 3 teachers or 4 teachers? 3 or 4, I forget. There were 4 teachers. You get a day with each teacher, like 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon with each teacher, 6 hours with each teacher. And at night, there's an all-star band, and you get to play with them. You get to play a song. So it's just a great way of getting back into it. And then the opening and closing nights are concerts by the faculty.
Wow.
A brilliant thing. And I went there, and it was like, oh man. And it come up in my talking with this woman that I was like, you know, drumming lessons, I should do drum lessons because it's always, you know, healthy to have a teacher. Like, I can't believe how many kids there are teaching drumming and they're so good. I was like pissed off. Like why do you guys, you know, I was like, I don't want to take lessons with a young guy, you know. So I go to the Drum Fantasy Camp, and the people that blew me away were the kids, man. They were so awesome. Young kids, just, and you know, I thought to myself, shit, and they're lucky to be in America, you know. Growing up, South Africa is cool now. It's Cape Town. There's actually a good music scene. Always has been, but it's even better for people coming up. But these kids, some of them were just brilliant. I mean, just like playing odd times. Like I can't even figure out what they were doing. They're so way ahead of where I was, where I am, and just everybody, old guys, young guys, people from all walks of life, all coming up there playing, doing their thing. It was great. So I came back pretty inspired by that. And the drum set that Todd Zuckerman from Styx was used at that thing, because he's one of these, you know, when these big drummers pull in, they don't bring their own drum set. They call up Pearl, the drum company, you know, send a kit. They send the kit to it all took place in a music store called Vic's. It's a multi-story building with rehearsal rooms and everything. Afterwards, Vic's drum gets to sell the drum set. I bought it. It's sitting in there. It's got Todd's signatures all over it and everything. So I'm like, yeah, I just had to. It was a good price, and I was like, just recommitting myself. My old drum set was from the 80s, the one that I had back in New Jersey.
Some old rocker, one-wick set, right?
It's an old Tama with the deep toms, like all power toms. It's still in the garage there. So yeah, I've been recommitted to the drumming, and now with the internet, Just amazing lessons. Actually, the guy Todd, he's got this amazing course at this website called Drumeo, and it's like $7.50 a lesson. It's like 26 lessons, goes for months. Every week something different, all sorts of
I
stuff
think
to learn.
everybody's participating in that now. Learn something online.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And they've written it out. He's, you know, it's not like it's a video and now you're on your own. Afterwards, the homework is all there. And you push a button, it comes up on the screen, and you can practice along at different tempos. They've got like this little drum machine following it. If you want to see what it was in the video, you just click the minutes and it goes back to the video and you see him doing it. It's just unbelievable, these lessons. I got it set up in there. Every day I go in and I'm just doing something radical. It's amazing, man.
Well, it sounds like a lucky life.
I'm blessed, man. I mean, this whole setup back here, the garage was converted. I got married again, you know, a few years ago to my lovely wife. I was single for 15 years, and yeah, I'm living the life, man. I'm happy.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for asking me. I'm humbled. I was just sort of stumbling through life, bumbling my way through,
And here we
it's
put
quite
a
a story.
purpose right in.
Thanks again, Peter.
Oh, thank you, guys.